Hello, my name is Nathan Carter, 39 years old, the founder of Innovate Designs, a sustainable interior design company that I built from scratch with sweat, tears, and my entire heart. Today, as I sit in my office in Portland, looking out at a window streaked with Oregon's characteristic drizzle, I can't help but think about my younger brother Lucas's extravagant birthday party nearly a year ago. That was the day everything changed. The day I realized my family saw me as a faint shadow on the sidelines of their dazzling success. But before I dive into the details of that story, I want you to picture me in my early days. A dreamy kid with a pencil and a sketchbook, growing up in a family where everything seemed predestined except for my dreams. Where are you reading this story from? Imagine us sitting together, sipping coffee in a cozy Portland cafe as I tell you about my journey. Let me take you back to where it all began. Rain pattered on the eaves of our two-story suburban Portland home where I grew up. It was a summer afternoon in 1999, and I was 13, sitting on the living room floor with my sketchbook splayed open. I was drawing a chair, not an ordinary one, but something like a spaceship with sleek curves and legs that flowed like ocean waves. Lucas, my 10-year-old brother, burst in, his face flushed from playing basketball in the driveway. "Nathan, come play with me," he panted. I grinned, closed my sketchbook, and ran after him. Those were the days when Lucas and I were best friends, allies, two brothers sharing family vacations on the Oregon coast, building sandcastles and chasing waves until Mom called us in for dinner. Our family was a typical middle-class one, though that might be an understated way to put it. My father, Robert Carter, was a prominent lawyer, the head of a well-known family law firm in Portland. He was a tall man with a deep voice and piercing eyes that made anyone facing him feel like they were standing before a judge. My mother, Evelyn, was a community activist, always busy with charity events and city council meetings. She was a warm woman with a radiant smile, but behind it was a steely determination, always supporting my father's career. They were a power couple, and I, with my sketchbook and quirky ideas, often felt like I didn't fit into their perfect picture. As a child, I didn't notice the growing distance between Lucas and me. We used to share everything, from Mom's freshly baked cookies to the silly secrets of childhood. But as I entered my teenage years, things changed. I started spending more time drawing, designing strange pieces of furniture. I imagined coffee tables that could fold up, chairs that swiveled like roller coasters. Lucas, on the other hand, loved debating, engaging in verbal sparring with friends, and especially listening to Dad's stories about major lawsuits over dinner. One day, "I'll be a lawyer like Dad," Lucas declared at 14, earning a proud nod from Dad and a beaming smile from Mom. I, sitting next to them with a half-chewed piece of steak, just bowed my head and drew another curve on a napkin. The differences between us became more pronounced when I went to college. I chose to study product design at a local Portland university, not Harvard or Yale as Dad had dreamed for me. Design. "That's a hobby, not a career," Dad said, his voice as cold as October rain. Mom was gentler, but she couldn't hide her disappointment. "Nathan, you're smart. You could be a lawyer, a doctor, anything you want. Why choose such an unstable path?" I tried to explain that design wasn't just doodling, that I wanted to create products that changed how people lived, but their eyes told me they didn't believe in it. Meanwhile, Lucas was sent to the University of Oregon Law School, Dad's alma mater. My parents paid his tuition, bought him a small apartment near campus, and Dad introduced him to major players in the legal world. "Lucas has potential," Dad said at a family dinner, just after I'd shared news of a design project I'd won an award for at school. "He'll take over the law firm one day." I swallowed hard, feeling like the mashed potatoes in my mouth had turned to sand. This favoritism didn't stop at words. When I graduated, I moved to Seattle, working for a small design firm with a salary barely enough to cover rent for a rundown one-bedroom apartment. I worked 70, sometimes 80 hours a week, sketching designs until my eyes burned, only to hear clients complain that a table was too modern or impractical. Meanwhile, Lucas was supported by our parents to buy a house in suburban Portland, complete with a brand new car. "Lucas needs those things to build a professional image," Mom explained when I asked. I didn't argue, but my heart felt heavy. I began to wonder if I truly belonged in this family. At 30, I decided to do something my parents called crazy. I founded Innovate Designs, a company focused on sustainable furniture, using recycled materials to create products that were both beautiful and eco-friendly. I took out a hefty bank loan, rented a small office in Portland's industrial district, and worked like a madman. In the early months, I slept on the office sofa to save money, eating instant noodles and drinking cold coffee. I called my parents, hoping for support, even just a word of encouragement. "If you fail, don't expect us to bail you out," Dad said. Mom stayed silent, asking a few perfunctory questions before pivoting to talk about Lucas winning a lawsuit. I hung up, feeling like the world had turned its back on me. But Innovate Designs didn't fail. After 2 years of struggle, I developed a unique line of recycled furniture, tables made from reclaimed wood, chairs upholstered with recycled plastic fabric, lamps crafted from discarded glass bottles. They started catching the attention of high-end hotels and restaurants in Portland. One day, I got a call from a major hotel chain wanting to order 50 sets of tables and chairs for their new branch. I nearly shouted in the office, startling my employees. It was the moment I knew I'd done something big. I called Mom, excitedly telling her about the contract. "That's nice, Nathan," she said flatly. "But did you hear Lucas just got promoted at Dad's firm?" I hung up, the smile fading from my face. Family gatherings only made me feel more invisible. At a Christmas dinner, Dad stood up to toast, boasting that Lucas had just won a lawsuit worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. The table erupted in applause. Mom beamed with pride, and Lucas smirked with self-assurance. I sat at the end of the table, wanting to share that Innovate Designs had just signed a deal with a national hotel chain. But when I opened my mouth, Dad had already moved on to ask Lucas about plans to expand the law firm. I fell silent, poking at my plate, feeling like a guest in my own family. Lucas, meanwhile, lived a life anyone would envy. He drove a Porsche, lived in a luxurious house in the West Hills, and was introduced by our parents as the heir to the Carter family. Every achievement of Lucas's, no matter how small, was magnified in their eyes. "Lucas just landed a major client," Dad announced at a family party, as if I wasn't sitting right there with the Innovative Entrepreneur Award I'd just received from Portland's Business Association. I began to wonder, would I ever be good enough in their eyes? This favoritism quietly ate away at me, but I kept trying. I loved my family, even if that love sometimes felt like an unhealed wound. I still showed up to gatherings, sent birthday gifts, and hoped that one day my parents would look at me and say, "Nathan, we're proud of you." But that day never came. And then Lucas's 35th birthday party arrived like a storm ready to sweep away everything I'd tried to hold on to. The Portland rain was still pattering as I drove to the Grand Meridian Hotel, a magnificent building in the heart of downtown where Lucas had chosen to hold his 35th birthday party. I wore a gray suit, one I rarely touched. But tonight, I wanted to look polished, not because I wanted to impress anyone, but because I knew this was Lucas's stage, a stage where all eyes would be on him, and I didn't want to be seen as the odd one out. In my jacket pocket, I carried a small gift, a fountain pen engraved with Lucas's name, made from reclaimed wood that I had carved by hand. I'd spent a week crafting that pen, hoping it would be a gesture of reconciliation, a way to say that despite the distance between us, I was still his older brother. I arrived at the hotel later than planned. By then, the guests were already gathered in full force. I handed my invitation to the receptionist, a young woman with a professional smile. She checked the guest list and pointed to a corner of the room. "Your table's over there, Mr. Carter," she said softly, without meeting my eyes. I nodded, weaving through the crowd, trying to ignore the curious glances from strangers. Inside the hotel's grand hall, crystal chandeliers sparkled like stars, their light reflecting off the marble floor. Soft jazz floated from a live band, and the scent of white roses mingled with the aroma of expensive wine. About 200 guests filled the room, a sea of people in elegant gowns and tailored suits. I recognized a few faces, lawyers from Dad's firm, prominent Portland businesspeople, and even a reporter from the Oregonian. This wasn't just a birthday party. It was a power event, a showcase of Lucas's status, doubling as a celebration of his latest triumph, a major lawsuit that brought in nearly $2 million in legal fees. That lawsuit of Lucas's was a big deal in Portland, splashed across local media. It dominated newspapers and social media, from in-depth analyses in the Portland Business Journal to viral posts on YouTube. I'd read about the case. Lucas represented Westview Holdings, a real estate conglomerate backed by Portland's elite, in a lawsuit against a coalition of environmental activists and low-income workers. The coalition, representing residents near the Willamette River, opposed Westview's luxury resort project, arguing it would destroy a protected forest and displace dozens of working-class families to make way for million-dollar villas. The outcome, Westview's project got the green light. The families were forced to leave, and Lucas's law firm pocketed nearly $2 million in fees. Back to the birthday party. When I found my assigned table, my heart nearly stopped. My table was at the edge of the banquet hall, right next to a narrow hallway used by servers to access the kitchen. A large trash bin stood a few steps away, the faint smell of leftover food lingering in the air. The people at my table, a group of strangers, likely friends of Lucas's friends, sipped their wine in silence, barely acknowledging each other. I glanced toward the main stage, where my parents, Lucas, and the VIP guests were laughing and chatting animatedly. The tables near the stage were adorned with white silk tablecloths and elaborate floral arrangements, while my table had a plain papercloth and a small vase with wilting flowers. I sat down, trying to suppress the unease rising in my chest. It's probably just a mistake, I told myself. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. I'd seen the look in Lucas's eyes when he invited me to the party, a fleeting smirk, as if he was doing me a favor. I went back to the receptionist to confirm, is there a mix-up with the seating? I'm at table 22, near the trash bin. The response came almost immediately, no mistake, Mr. Nathan. Mr. Lucas arranged that seat for you. He said he wanted you there. I tried to stay calm, but it felt like someone had punched me in the chest. Lucas, my little brother who once built sandcastles with me on the Oregon coast, had deliberately pushed me to the sidelines, not just in our family, but even on his special day. The party officially began. I tried to focus on the appetizer, a small salad with a few lettuce leaves and a slice of tomato, but the food tasted bitter and was hard to swallow. I looked toward the center of the hall, where Lucas stood, holding a glass of wine, laughing with a group of lawyers. He looked like a star, a tailored black suit, neatly styled hair, and the confident smile I'd seen in law magazine photos. Dad stood beside him, patting his shoulder, while Mom kept introducing him to important guests. I wondered if they even noticed I was here, or if I was just a name on a guest list they felt obligated to invite. As the party moved to the speeches, Dad took the stage, holding the microphone with the ease of someone used to addressing crowds. Today is a special day, he began, his deep voice resonating through the room. We are not only celebrating Lucas's 35th birthday, but also his greatest career achievement, a multimillion-dollar lawsuit, a victory any lawyer would dream of. The room erupted in applause, with a few people even whistling. Lucas bowed his head, feigning humility, but I knew he was soaking up every second. Dad went on, recounting Lucas's journey from his law school days to becoming the heir to the family law firm. Not once did he mention me, Innovate Designs, or the Innovative Entrepreneur Award I'd received just months earlier. I clenched my fists under the table, feeling like I was being erased from the family story. Then it was Lucas's turn to speak. He stepped onto the stage, his smile radiant, and began thanking our parents, friends, and colleagues. I waited, hoping for even a single mention of me, something like, my brother Nathan is here, and I'm proud of what he does. But nothing. Lucas talked about the lawsuit, the late nights preparing case files, and how he was redefining the legal industry in Portland. When he finished, the room stood to applaud, while I sat there, feeling like a ghost. I didn't intend to make a scene, really. I just wanted to leave, go home, and forget this night ever happened. But as I stood to grab my coat, a man at my table, a stranger with a silver beard and curious eyes, asked, "You're Nathan Carter, aren't you? The one making those recycled furniture pieces?" I nodded, slightly surprised. "I saw an article about you in the Portland Business Journal. Your company's doing great work." His words were like a small spark in the darkness, but they also ignited a fire inside me. If a stranger could recognize my worth, why couldn't my own family? I walked toward Lucas, who was now standing near the bar, chatting with a group of guests. My heart pounded, but I couldn't stop myself. "Lucas," I called, loud enough for those around us to turn and look. He spun around, his smile faltering when he saw me. I was seated at a table by the trash bin. "Was that your idea?" I asked bluntly, cutting to the chase. The crowd around us fell silent, a few people pausing their conversations to eavesdrop. Lucas smirked, that familiar smirk I knew all too well, half arrogant, half mocking. "You should be grateful you were even invited," he said coolly. "Not everyone gets a seat at events like this, especially someone who just makes recycled wood trinkets." A few people nearby chuckled, as if I were a punchline. Lucas didn't stop. "How much does your company make? A few tens of thousands? My deal was worth 10 times Innovate Design's revenue. You should learn to know your place." His words cut like a knife. I stood there, feeling the entire room's eyes on me, waiting to see if I'd crumble or run. But then something inside me snapped, not anger, but clarity. I'd spent my whole life trying to be recognized, to prove I was worthy. But now, standing in front of my brother and this crowd, I knew I couldn't stay silent anymore. I didn't need to yell or make a spectacle. I just needed to speak the truth. I looked Lucas straight in the eyes, my voice calm but sharp as a blade. "My place? My place is the guy who built a company from nothing, without mom and dad's help, without a gifted house or car. Innovate Designs isn't just recycled wood trinkets, Lucas. It's my dream, something that's changing how people see sustainable design. And you? You think money and fame make you better than me? You're wrong." The banquet hall went quiet, save for the faint jazz from the live band and a few whispers from nearby guests. Lucas stood frozen, the smug smile on his face gone, replaced by an awkward expression. I thought he'd fire back, continue mocking me as he always did. But before he could speak, I heard Dad's voice, deep and commanding, from behind me, "Nathan, that's enough." Dad strode forward, his black suit immaculate, his eyes cold, as if he were in a courtroom. Mom was right beside him, her lips pressed tightly, her deep green evening gown shimmering under the chandeliers. The crowd parted, making way for them, as if the entire room knew the Carter family was about to face an internal showdown. I turned to face them, my chest still heavy, but I didn't back down. "What are you doing, Nathan?" Dad asked, his voice low but forceful, like I was a defendant on trial. "This is your brother's birthday, a day to celebrate his success. Why are you ruining it by causing a scene like this?" I felt like the floor beneath me was shaking. Ruining it? I looked at Dad, then at Mom, hoping for a flicker of empathy in her eyes, but she just shook her head, her gaze full of disappointment. "Nathan, you should be happy for Lucas," she said, her voice softer but still laced with reproach. "Your brother just achieved something huge. Don't you see everyone's here for him? Why do you have to make a fuss?" "Make a fuss?" I repeated, my voice with disbelief. "Mom, Dad, I'm just telling the truth. Lucas humiliated me in front of everyone, called my work worthless, and stuck me by the trash bin. I'm not ruining anything. Lucas did that when he treated me like I'm disposable in my own family." Lucas, standing a few steps away, smirked, as if he was about to say something, but Dad raised a hand to silence him. "Enough, Nathan," Dad said, his voice now as cold as stone. "You've always been too sensitive. Lucas was just joking, and you're turning it into a drama. Do you know how many important people are here? They came to celebrate your brother, and you're embarrassing the entire family." I stood there, feeling my blood boil but also freeze. Embarrassing the family? I looked at Mom, hoping she'd say something to balance things out, but she just took Lucas's hand, as if he were the victim in this story. "Nathan, go back to your table and behave properly," she said, her voice almost pleading. "Don't make things worse." I wanted to scream, to ask why Lucas was always defended, why my efforts, the years of working to exhaustion, the nights sleeping on the office sofa, the contracts I secured with my own sweat, weren't worth a single word of recognition. But I said nothing, not because I was afraid, but because I realized that in their eyes, I'd always be the lesser brother, the one who didn't choose law like Dad, who didn't bring in millions like Lucas. I took a deep breath, turned, and walked out of the Grand Meridian Hotel. The curious stares and whispered gossip followed me, but I didn't care anymore. I just wanted to get out of there as fast as possible. When I returned to my small apartment, the lingering smell of cold coffee and sketch paper still hung in the air. I sank onto the sofa, still in my rain-soaked, crumpled suit, and opened my laptop. Lucas's words replayed in my head like a broken record. "Not everyone gets a seat at events like this, especially someone who just makes recycled wood trinkets." I wasn't angry at Lucas for thinking I wasn't good enough. I was angry because he said it in front of everyone, because my family, Dad, Mom, and Lucas, had made me feel invisible in my own story. I opened LinkedIn, where I often shared updates about Innovate Designs and connected with the local entrepreneurial community. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, and I began to write. "To my fellow Portland entrepreneurs," I started, my tone not angry but calm, like I was speaking to a friend. "Tonight, I attended my brother Lucas Carter's birthday party, a celebrated lawyer fresh off his victory in the Westview Holdings lawsuit. I went hoping to bridge the gap between us, but instead, I was seated literally next to a trash bin and mocked in front of hundreds for my work. Innovate Designs, the company I built from nothing, isn't just recycled wood trinkets, as my brother called it. It stands for sustainability, for creating value without trampling on others. I've spent my life trying to prove my worth. But tonight, I realized respect doesn't come from pleasing family. It comes from living true to what you believe. I'm not writing this to criticize, but to ask, how can we build a community of entrepreneurs who respect each other when even family can dismiss each other's success? I hit post, unsure of what would happen. I just knew I needed to speak out, to let someone, anyone, know I wasn't invisible. I closed the laptop, took a shower, and tried to sleep, but sleep wouldn't come. Images of the party replayed in my mind. Lucas's smug look, Mom's polite smile, and the chandeliers gleaming as if mocking me. The next morning, I woke to dozens of LinkedIn notifications. My post had gone viral, with over 500 likes and nearly 200 comments in just a few hours. I scrolled through, my heart pounding. A local entrepreneur, the owner of an organic food company, wrote, "Nathan, I was at the party last night and saw how Lucas treated you. It was disappointing. Innovate Designs is an inspiration, and you deserve respect." Another designer commented, "I've worked with Lucas before. He only cares about money, not people. Thank you for speaking out." Reading these, I felt a warmth spread through me. For the first time in years, I felt seen. But the biggest surprise came when the comments started digging into Lucas's lawsuit. One user, identifying as a member of the environmental activist coalition in the Westview Holdings case, wrote, "Lucas Carter isn't the hero the media makes him out to be. He represented Westview, who were ready to destroy the Willamette Forest and displace working-class families for a luxury resort, all for a $2 million legal fee." The comment quickly gained dozens of likes, with others sharing details I hadn't known. Another user, claiming to be a former employee of our family's law firm, revealed, "Lucas once refused to defend a factory worker because it wasn't profitable enough. He only works for the wealthy." I read in disbelief. Lucas, the little brother who once shared cookies with me, was now described as a profit-driven opportunist, willing to sacrifice values to serve the elite. Within 24 hours, my post had garnered nearly 10,000 views and over 1,000 shares. One account wrote, "Lucas Carter thinks he's a star for defending Westview Holdings, but at what cost? Working families lost their homes. The Willamette Forest was ravaged. Meanwhile, his brother Nathan Carter built Innovate Designs to protect the environment. Who's the one worth celebrating?" I read those words, stunned and slightly guilty. I hadn't meant to make Lucas the target of criticism. But the truth I'd shared had sparked a firestorm. That firestorm grew when Karen Mitchell, owner of the Pacific Eats restaurant chain and one of Lucas's major clients, spoke out. Karen was a prominent figure in Portland, known for supporting sustainable businesses. I'd met her at a conference when Innovate Designs furnished one of her restaurants. At the party, I remembered seeing her at a VIP table, just meters from Lucas. The next afternoon, she posted on LinkedIn, "I signed a $500,000 legal contract with Lucas Carter because of his reputation, but after witnessing how he treated his brother, Nathan Carter, last night, and after reading about the Westview Holdings case, I'm canceling that contract. Pacific Eats doesn't work with people who lack integrity." Her post was shared hundreds of times. The entrepreneurial community began calling Lucas the lawyer for the elite, with some even labeling him a cold-blooded opportunist with no conscience. The fallout came fast. Several of Lucas's other clients, including a major Portland tech company, publicly announced they were reviewing their contracts with his law firm. The Oregonian, which had once praised Lucas, published a new article titled, "Lucas Carter's Victory, Glory or Controversy?" The piece delved into the Westview case, interviewing displaced working-class families and environmental activists whose claims were dismissed in court. A single mother who'd lived near the Willamette River said through tears, "Lucas Carter didn't even look at us. To him, we were just obstacles to Westview's $1 million project." Reading those words, I felt a pang of sorrow. I didn't want Lucas to fail, but I couldn't deny that he'd chosen his own path, one I'd never want to follow. As Portland's entrepreneurial community buzzed with posts and comments online, my family didn't stay on the sidelines. That evening, as I sat in my apartment trying to focus on a new design for a Seattle hotel, my phone buzzed. Dad's name flashed on the screen. I hesitated, my finger hovering over the answer button. Part of me wanted to ignore it, but I knew avoiding this now would only make things worse. I pressed accept. "Nathan," Dad's voice came through, cold and sharp as a blade. "Do you have any idea what you've done? The whole city is talking about your post. The firm's clients are calling, demanding explanations. You've damaged Lucas's reputation, the family's reputation, and the law firm I've built for 30 years. I sat up straight, my heart racing. "Dad, I just told the truth," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady despite the tightness in my chest. "Lucas humiliated me in front of everyone, and you and Mom defended him. I've spent my life trying to earn your approval, but all I got was a seat by the trash bin. Do you know how that feels?" Dad sighed, a heavy sound through the phone. "You always blow things out of proportion, Nathan. Lucas was just joking. You didn't need to turn it into a public scandal. Have you thought about the consequences? Lucas is losing clients. Major partners are questioning his competence. Do you want to destroy your brother's career over a little wounded pride?" I bit my lip, holding back the anger rising inside me. Wounded pride? Dad, this isn't about pride. It's about respect. I built Innovate Designs from nothing, without a cent from you or Mom, without a word of support. Meanwhile, Lucas got a house, a car, and endless praise. I just wanted my family to see me, but you never have. Dad was silent for a moment, and I thought he might say something to soften the blow. But then he replied, his voice firm, "Nathan, you need to apologize to Lucas publicly. Write another post. Say you misunderstood. If you don't, you'll be responsible for every loss the firm suffers." He hung up before I could respond. I sat there, staring at the phone, feeling like the world was collapsing around me. Less than an hour later, Mom called. Her voice was softer but carried that familiar tone of reproach. "Nathan, you know I love you, but why did you do this to Lucas? Your brother is under so much stress. He worked hard on the Westview case, and now people are attacking him because of your post. Do you know how much that hurts? I gripped the phone tightly, trying to keep my voice from shaking. Mom, I didn't mean for things to spiral like this, but do you know what Lucas did? He represented Westview Holdings, who displaced working families to build a resort for the rich. He chose money over justice. And when I spoke up about how he treated me, you and Dad blamed me. Why doesn't anyone ask Lucas why he humiliated me in front of everyone? Mom sighed, a weary sound. Nathan, Lucas isn't perfect, but he's your brother. Family sticks together. You can't keep being jealous of his success. Jealous. The word stabbed my heart like a needle. I wasn't jealous of Lucas. I just wanted to be seen, to be acknowledged, the way my parents always did for him. Mom, I said, my voice hoarse. I'm not jealous. I'm just tired of having to prove I'm worthy. I hung up, unwilling to hear another word. Lucas, meanwhile, didn't stay silent. The next morning, I saw a new LinkedIn post from his account. I'm deeply disappointed by the recent criticism aimed at me and my family's law firm, he wrote. The Westview Holdings case was a legitimate legal victory, handled with the utmost professionalism. I'm proud to have defended my client's interests, and I will continue to do so. False accusations from a few individuals cannot overshadow the truth. The post didn't mention me directly, but everyone knew who a few individuals referred to. The comments below were split. Some supported Lucas, praising his fighting spirit, but many others continued the criticism, dredging up details about the Westview case. About 2 weeks later, the storm of public opinion began to settle, much like how Portland's rain eventually clears after days of dampness. But what remained wasn't peace. It was like the aftermath of a flood. Everything had changed, and there was no going back. While my LinkedIn post continued to garner hundreds of shares, the Portland entrepreneurial community started seeing me differently. No longer just Lucas Carter's brother, I became Nathan Carter, the founder of Innovate Designs, the man who dared to stand up for his values, even against his own family. On a Tuesday morning, as I was checking emails in the small office of Innovate Designs, a message from an unfamiliar address popped up. The sender was Emily Harper, the sustainability director for Cascade Resorts, a high-end hotel chain with branches across the Pacific Northwest. Dear Nathan, she wrote, I read your LinkedIn post and was deeply impressed by how you stood up for respect and sustainable values. Cascade Resorts is seeking partners committed to environmental stewardship, and we'd like to discuss using Innovate Designs recycled furniture for our upcoming projects. I read the email over and over, my heart racing. Cascade Resorts wasn't a small client. They owned over 20 hotels, from Seattle to San Francisco. A contract with them could elevate Innovate Designs to a new level. I replied immediately, keeping my tone professional despite wanting to shout with joy. Within a week, 3 more similar emails arrived. An organic food company in Portland wanted to collaborate on recycled packaging design. A local university invited me to speak at a sustainable entrepreneurship conference, and a venture capital fund, which had rejected me 2 years earlier, offered to invest in scaling up Innovate Designs production. We misjudged you, Nathan, the fund's representative wrote. Your story and Innovate Designs mission are exactly what we want to invest in. I sat there, staring at the flood of emails, feeling like the world was opening up before me. For the first time, I wasn't chasing Lucas's shadow. I was standing in my own light. The fiercely competitive Portland entrepreneurial community began to view Innovate Designs as a symbol of integrity and sustainability. At a networking event that week, I was invited to speak on stage about my journey. As I shared stories of sleeping on the office sofa, being dismissed by my family, and building Innovate Designs from nothing, the audience applauded enthusiastically. A middle-aged woman, the owner of a local food shop, approached me after the event to shake my hand. I was at Lucas's birthday party, she said. I saw how he treated you. You're not just a talented designer, Nathan. You're an inspiration. Those simple, sincere words left me choked up. I'd spent my life seeking validation from my family. But now, I realized this community, strangers who shared my values, had given me what my family never could. While Innovate Designs was on the rise, my father's and Lucas's law firm was plunging into crisis. The fallout from my post and the wave of social media criticism didn't stop at whispers. After Karen Mitchell canceled her $500,000 contract with Lucas, other major clients followed suit. A Portland tech company, a longtime partner of the firm, issued a statement saying they were reevaluating their relationship with my father's firm. A national retail conglomerate, in the midst of negotiating a major lawsuit with Lucas, pulled out at the last minute, citing concerns about reputation. I didn't hear this from Dad or Lucas, but from an old friend who worked in the legal industry. Your dad's firm is reeling, Nathan, he said over the phone. Lucas is holding on to a few big clients, but his reputation has taken a serious hit. People are starting to call him the lawyer for the elite. The media kept digging into the Westview Holdings case. An article in Willamette Week interviewed environmental activists who described Lucas as a heartless legal machine. A woman who had led the coalition opposing the Westview project said, Lucas Carter knew that resort would destroy the environment and displace working families, but he didn't care. He just wanted the money. The article quoted an internal email from Westview in which an executive praised Lucas for clearing the obstacles, a cold reference to the low-income workers and environmental activists. Reading those lines, I felt a deep sadness. Lucas was once the little brother who ran after me on the Oregon coast, building sandcastles and laughing carefree. Now he was a stranger, swept up in a world of money and power where values like justice or community seemed to no longer exist. Lucas tried to salvage the situation. A week after my initial post, he appeared on an online talk show, attempting to defend his reputation. The Westview Holdings case was a fair legal victory, he said, his voice as smooth as a politician's. I represented my client with the highest professionalism. The recent criticisms are unfair and personal. But the audience wasn't convinced. In the live comments, dozens of people questioned Lucas's ethics, his refusal to take pro bono cases for low-income workers, and how he treated me at the party. One comment read, Lucas, have you apologized to your brother for humiliating him? Or do you only apologize when you lose contracts? The question racked up hundreds of likes, and Lucas, though trying to maintain his smile, looked visibly rattled on camera. My parents, meanwhile, didn't waver in their stance. One evening, Mom showed up at my apartment, the first time she'd visited since I moved there. She stood at the door, still in her elegant wool coat, but her eyes were weary. Nathan, she said, her voice low, you have to stop this. What you're doing is tearing the family apart. Lucas is struggling, and so is your father's firm. Have you thought about us? I invited her in and poured her a cup of tea, but the air between us was taut like a guitar string. Mom, I said, I don't want to destroy anything. I just want to be respected. Lucas made his choices, and if those choices have consequences, that's not my fault. Mom shook her head, her hands gripping the teacup tightly. You don't understand, Nathan. Lucas needs us. Your brother is the future of this family. My heart ached as I looked at her. What about me, Mom? Am I part of this family? She didn't answer. Just stood up, placed the teacup on the table, and left. The door closed, leaving me with a heavy silence. The teacup Mom left on the table was still there, its warmth long gone, much like the relationship between me and my family. I wasn't angry at Mom or Dad or Lucas. But I was exhausted from years of trying to be seen, to be acknowledged, to be a part of the perfect picture my family always painted. And today, as I sit here looking out the window at the rain, I've started reflecting on everything that's happened, not the new contracts, the partnership offers, or the public storm that shook Lucas's life, but about what I've learned and what I want to share with anyone who's ever felt invisible. I used to think my worth depended on my family's approval. I spent decades trying to make my parents proud, to earn Lucas's respect as his older brother, to prove that my path of sustainable design wasn't the frivolous hobby they called it. But at Lucas's birthday party, when he humiliated me in front of hundreds, when my parents defended him and blamed me for ruining the mood, I realized something: other people's recognition, whether from family or anyone else, doesn't define who you are. Your worth lies in you, in what you believe, in the dreams you chase, and in how you stand up after being knocked down. When I wrote that LinkedIn post, sharing how Lucas and my family treated me, I didn't expect the whole city to take notice. I just wanted to speak my truth, to be heard, even if only once. But what I got was more than that. A community of entrepreneurs rallied behind me, strangers who shared my values of integrity and sustainability. They reminded me that family isn't just those bound by blood, but those who walk the same path as you. Karen Mitchell, with her decision to cancel a $500,000 contract with Lucas, didn't just stand up for me. She stood for a principle, that in business and life, respect is non-negotiable. I learned that disrespect doesn't just hurt others, it comes back to harm you. But the biggest lesson I took away wasn't about Lucas, my parents, or what happened at the Grand Meridian Hotel. It was about finding strength within myself. When I stood up to Lucas, when I typed those words on LinkedIn, I wasn't just defending my honor. I was defending my dream. Innovate Designs isn't just a company. It's proof that you can create value without stepping on anyone, that you can change the world, even if it's just with tables made from reclaimed wood. And in doing so, I found a community, young designers, sustainable entrepreneurs, people who believe a better world is possible. So, here's my advice for anyone reading this story, anyone who's ever felt invisible: don't wait for someone to hand you validation. Don't let the indifferent glances of family, friends, or society make you doubt your worth. Stand up, even if your voice shakes, even if the world seems against you. Speak your truth, not because you want to win, but because you deserve to be heard. And find your community, those who will lift you up, not because they have to, but because they believe in what you believe. I don't know if Lucas and I will ever mend our relationship. I don't know if my parents will ever look at me and say, "Nathan, we're proud of you." But I don't need those things anymore. I stand here in my small office, surrounded by sketches and dreams, and I know I'm enough. I'm Nathan Carter, the founder of Innovate Designs, the man who learned to love himself even when his family didn't. And if I can do it, so can you.